Jillian Turecki is a certified relationship coach, teacher, and writer who for 20 years has taught others how to transform their relationship with themselves. Under the tutelage of Tony Robbins and world-renowned family therapist Cloe Madanes, Jillian is certified by the Robbins Madanes Center for Strategic Intervention. Fueled by an insatiable curiosity about what makes a relationship thrive, Jillian has helped thousands through her teaching and writing revolutionize their relationship with themselves so that they can transform their relationships with others. Jillian is sought out for her compassionate, direct, and very authentic style of coaching and teaching. Jillian, g'day.
How are you?
I'm so well. So what's gone on in your day today? Like, what's happened so far? What happens in your life day to day? Please give me a rundown.
What happens in my life day to day? Honestly, I work a lot. Well, right now I am working on my book proposal because I have a contract right now to write a book. So I'm working on my book proposal. So my days have been, the last few weeks, been a lot of writing.
And what are you thinking you're going to write a book about?
Well, it's a book about relationships, but it's my specific take on relationships and really to help the person. It's a book about relationships, but the focus is on the relationship with yourself and what you have to do to kind of get over your BS and have a healthy relationship, basically.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to talk to you about because that seems to be your thing. It takes a lot of accountability, doesn't it, in order to be able to own up to what's going on with you in order to have a better relationship. Would you say that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, I always say that when you have to be able to look at all your relationships and see that the one thing that they have in common is you. And that's really tough, but people shy away from the accountability, but it is so important because that's when you can actually make a change. As long as it's everyone else's fault, guess what? You're going to always be miserable. But if you can see that you're responsible for the choices that you've made, you're responsible for dealing with any unresolved issues from childhood, you're responsible for how you show up in a relationship, you're just responsible for whatever you need to overcome. That's when everything changes for the better. And when you're in a relationship, and if you're in a relationship, when you have two people who are willing to really own their part, when they're really willing to say, I may have not wanted to hurt you, but I did hurt you, and just take responsibility for that and just to own their stuff, because we're constantly projecting. We're constantly bringing if you've been with someone long enough, we're going to get in crappy moods. We're going to get stressed out. And who's going to bear the brunt of that? The person we love. We take the person who we once thought was like God's gift to earth. We take that person for granted. And that's not cool. And so just being responsible for that. And then we also, in a relationship, I hear it all the time. Someone will say, well, he did all this great stuff for me in the beginning, or she did all this amazing stuff for me in the beginning, and now they changed. And I'm like, well, how are you different from what you were in the beginning? Are you in your sweatpants, picking your nose all day, in front of your partner? Or is that what you're doing all the time? Because in the beginning, I could put money on the fact that you weren't, so it's that.
Totally. Yeah, totally. And you know what's so interesting is I always think it's so funny that because I care what people think about me. I'm one of those people. I like people to like me.
Everyone
and
is.
Yeah. Oh, sure. But I often think it must be hard for my wife or my parents, of whom I might be snappy with them, moody with them, and then I go and see other people, and I'm really nice. It's so funny that we feel like we can treat the people that we really love, that are closest to us, with in a mediocre way. Why is that?
Yeah, it sucks. It actually really sucks. And it's very painful. I've been on the receiving end of that. I've known a lot of people to be on the receiving end of that. I'm sure I've done it unwittingly, where someone you're in a relationship with, like they're putting up all the charm for everyone else but you.
Yeah.
And it hurts.
It does.
And
it does
so,
hurt.
like,
Well,
people,
yeah.
It hurts. And then so like we bring, you know, I'm certainly not the first person to say this, but like you bring your leftovers home to the person that you're supposed to be like, instead, you know, romancing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, it's almost quite biblical, you know, the fattened calf and the first fruits are given to everyone else and not the person that you love the deepest.
Yes, because we feel comfortable. And sometimes, I mean, that's really what it's all about. It's that we feel so comfortable with the person and we think, well, they'll just love me anyway, which is not true. You know, maybe with family, that's true. But in a romantic relationship, you want to feel very secure with the person that you're in a relationship with. If there's any insecurity, there's going to be problems, and the problems are just going to get worse. But there always has to be an understanding that that person doesn't belong to you, that they actually, if things got really bad, or if you didn't actually take responsibility, or if you were always dumping your stress on them, they'll leave you. And so that, just knowing that and being reminded of that, I think is how we can come to cherish and respect the person that we're with more, knowing that they're there because, you know, you're together because you're choosing to be together, not because you're just like stuck together.
And everyone focuses a lot on they choose me every day. And it's like, well, you need to choose them every day too. And also you need to be a person worth choosing. And so if you're like always getting angry with them, giving them the dregs of your energy, picking your nose all day, you know, wearing sweats all day, you know, are you being somebody worth choosing?
Yes. Yeah. And you know what? I'm so glad you brought that up, because a lot of people actually don't like to admit that or say that. You know, that's actually a really hard truth. It's like, yes, we all want to be chosen. We all want to be loved for exactly who we are. We want to be able to feel safe and free and all of that. But are you actually showing up as someone who they would want to choose? And it's not to question your fundamental worth as a human being. It's just that we have a responsibility when we're in a relationship to show up. You know, we have actually a responsibility to take care of our mental health and our physical health and emotional health. Like, we have a responsibility. Like, it's not going to work. We all go through seasons and we go through hard times, and couples go through seasons and hard times. But like, if you're not feeling good about yourself, whether that's physically, whether that's mentally, whether that's emotionally, you need to figure that out. And and when you're in a relationship, you don't have to just figure it out for yourself. You actually have to figure it out for your relationship and for the other person, because it can't be just like, I'm just in it for me. In a relationship, it's like, you have to look at your relationship with this person and be like, I'm going to do what it takes to protect this thing that we are in contract with together about. Yeah.
Yeah. It almost seems that self-worth is different to what you're talking about. There's a responsibility when you get into a relationship. You are responsible for being somebody worth choosing and showing up for that person. For yourself, like, self-worth is like, it's not performance-based in a way. Like, self-worth needs to be not based on performance. It needs to be like, no matter what, I'm with me and I love me no matter what. Like, that's what kind of what self-worth needs to be. But in a relationship, it's like, no, it is your responsibility to take care of yourself emotionally, spiritually, physically, just like you said. And kind of, am I getting this right? Am I on the right track?
Yeah. No, absolutely. Like, so let me put it to you this way. If someone breaks your heart, if someone breaks up with you and you don't want that relationship to end, commonly what happens is that we start to then question our worthiness. And it's not that, and that's the last thing we should be doing. We can question our behavior. We can question some of the patterns that we had. We can question some of the mistakes that we think we made in the relationship, but that doesn't mean that we're less of a human being. It could mean that we fucked up in some way, but it doesn't mean that we are actually less of a human being. And, you know, and the thing is, I mean, being a person worth choosing, look, you're in a long-term relationship. It takes work to keep the passion sort of alive. Like nothing is like the chemistry that is in the beginning of a relationship. But if you build a life with someone, and if you're really able to go deep with that person and have a lot of emotional intimacy and have the friendship and the camaraderie and the fun in the adventure, that chemistry transmutes into something that when you get to a certain age, hopefully you say, I choose that over whatever that first month was with whoever. But some people are so addicted. Sorry.
It's so annoying, isn't it? Because it's like the first time you do ecstasy. I don't know if you've ever done ecstasy, but it's so fantastic. Right. And then the second time you go and do it, you're like, wasn't quite as good. It's still good, but not quite as good. And then you keep chasing that. And it's kind of like the beginning of the relationship is always like that. Like your, oxytocin, serotonin, dopamine is all like kicking, right? And you're on this chemical roller coaster, just like ecstasy. And then you almost feel like 6 months in, or however long your honeymoon period, I call it, lasts. Then you're like, now I have to clamor to try and get some of that back. And actually what's happening is like, stop clamoring. It's okay. But now it just becomes your responsibility and a little bit of a game to be able to keep passion there, to keep joy there and fun there and depth there, right? It kind of becomes a bit more of a duty.
Yes. But I would also argue that part of the reason why it's so amazing in the beginning, well, of course, like you said, all those hormones and those neurotransmitters, and it's the novelty and it's new, and we're projecting this whole fantasy, and we're like getting excited about getting to know this person. And we are, like I said, we're projecting our ideal onto this person. And even if we know this rationally, somewhere in our subconscious, we're thinking this person's going to rescue me. All my problems are going to go away. Everything's going to be perfect. Like, whatever. So that is definitely happening. But what's also happening is that we're showing up as like really cool, fun, vibrant, alive versions of ourselves. And then we get the person, and then all of a sudden it's like life starts to sit on our shoulders, stress and all of this. And we think, like I said, like we don't have to actually be that person. Like usually when the magic goes out in a person's relationship, it's really because the magic has gone out in the individual. And so part of keeping that passion alive, even though it'll never be like it's exactly like in the beginning, because you know each other well, but part of keeping that passion alive is being able to say, well, where's my responsibility in this? Like, where's the Luke, or where's the Jillian that showed up in the beginning of the relationship? Like, have I actually been bringing my A game? So, and that's another way that we take people for granted. We think, oh, I should just feel this chemistry for this person. Like, no, like you need to like actually have fun together and show up and be more vibrant, because that's when you're more attractive. That's when you feel better in your skin. And that's when you're more attracted and more attractive to your partner.
Yeah. So what are some ways that we can keep, take the chemistry upon our own shoulders and keep things like that alive? You think about conversation early on. I remember when I first met my wife, the first the first few months I had to like calm down when I was around her. I wanted to tell her everything that I knew about, everything that I thought about. I wanted to blah, 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 blah on. And so maybe an example of like a way to continue that excitement is to like think about things to talk with your partner about. Think about things that you find interesting, so that when you do sit down for dinner and you're like, you know, and you feel that silence that so many couples who've been together for years feel, maybe you can actually dive into something together that's of interest.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll get back to that in just a second. It's also, it's about also having curiosity. Like, we think that we know this person, that we're in a relationship for a long time. We think that we know them so well. And we might, but we're also really mysterious creatures. And we have our psychology has a lot of depth and darkness and richness. And so sometimes it's just about, it's like looking at a piece of art, right? And let's say it's a piece of art that you look at all the time. And so you know the colors, you know the shape, you know the form. But there is a way where you can look at a piece of art every day and find something different. You know, see it in a whole new light. See like a color in it, you know, like a hue that's in it that you didn't see before. Or maybe you're looking at it differently because of the way the light is hitting it. Or maybe you're looking at it differently because it's dark out. And that's how you have to kind of look at your partner, as this piece of art that isn't one-dimensional. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is how to bring, you know, richness into and all of that, and passion. Yeah. Asking questions, like deep questions. You know, what was the first time you knew that, or when was the first time that you questioned yourself, or when you questioned your worth? When was the first time that you knew that you fell in love, or something like that? Just ask each other deep, curious questions. Like, I really want to know this about you. So yeah, I think that's a great way to do it. Also, every couple is different. There is no formula for this. Some couples thrive spending a certain amount of time together, and some couples thrive needing a little bit more distance. I think obviously the pandemic made things very, very difficult for a lot of people in that way. But figuring out, like, what is the secret sauce for how much time you spend together versus how much time you spend apart. And that could literally just be a few hours during the day. It doesn't have to be like, you know, weeks apart or anything like that, but kind of understanding that, because there's always this dance of togetherness and separateness that a couple needs to, and it changes, I think, throughout the course of their relationship, but trying to kind of figure out and be attuned to, oh, like, we need more bonding right now, or I really need to miss her right now. I need to miss him right now. Maybe I need to like go, I don't know, have like a weekend with friends or something, so I can just like come back and miss them. Yeah.
And that takes some maturity too, because people see like, oh, you taking space means that you're sick of me, or that you don't like me, or you don't, you know, whatever. And it takes some maturity just to go, no, like, this person's an independent individual of me, of who needs emotional support in ways that I can't give. You know, it's like that thing that I keep hearing about from so many people who argue against monogamy, saying that now, instead of having what we used to have, a village to support one person, now we have only one person who's a lover, a therapist, a cook, all of these things, and that's your lover. It's a little bit like that. We don't have to give over to that when it comes to, and we don't have to be polyamorous, but just to allow the person to go and be an independent person of you is healthy and mature.
Absolutely. And we need that, because I actually think what sparks sexual attraction are these sort of random moments, these moments that you wouldn't think would be the thing that sparks sexual attraction. But it's like that moment where you get like this glimpse of like, oh yeah, this person is a completely autonomous person, meaning they think differently. They have their own brain. They have their own shit going on. And it's those moments where like, you're like, you are not me and I am not you. And when we have those moments, those almost like individuated moments where we see them as autonomous, that sparks a lot of desire and attraction. And it's funny. It's like we do live in a world now where, because we don't have the traditional gender roles that we did in the past, and this is regardless of whether you are in a heterosexual same-sex relationship, because those roles don't really exist so much anymore. It's not about like one partner stays home while the other one like makes all the money, or, you know, in the past traditionally the woman stays home, the man goes out and brings home the bacon. Because we don't have those roles, we have much higher expectations of the people that we're in a relationship with. It's like we want that soulmate. We want that person who's going to be like our everything. And it's a lot of pressure because, as to your point, it's really important to be able to get our needs met from various people in our lives, like family and friends and work. And not even various people, but from various things in our lives, like meaning from being a parent, you're a parent, meaning from our work, whatever it is. So yeah, not making your significant other your everything is great, is recommended.
Yeah, well, it's almost like what you were saying before, which I loved, which is getting to see your partner in moments of autonomy, independence. It sparks a lot of desire, and then the desire is sexual, like you mentioned, and so then you want to, because you see them as independent of you and autonomous, and that's really attractive, then you want to meld with them in a sexual way and kind of intertwine your bodies and your spirits together in order to be like, I want some of this, or I want to celebrate this by putting ourselves together, like quite literally linking ourselves together. And then you need to go, and then you need to retreat again and let them go back to being that.
Yeah. It's a constant dance. This is why it's hard. Yeah. It's like you feel, it's like what happens is you feel the sexual attraction and you're like, all of a sudden you're like, okay, I want to own this person. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that more like in an erotic way. It's like, I want this person's mine. You know, I want to attach to this person, like you said. And, you know, it's interesting. It's, we feel desire when we see someone independent, when we see them in their element, is also really, really, really is a huge turn on for people to see them.
Yeah.
Because when someone is in their element, like they don't need you. They're on point. They're happy. And I think that we forget how magnetic we are to people when we're happy. And it's hard because we can't be happy all the time. But we have to try to figure out how to have more meaning in our lives and more joy in our lives, because that actually, I think, is ultimately what we find most attractive about each other, is when that person is in that moment. But another like paradox really is that, so we get sexually attracted when someone's like in their element and independent, but it's also can be an aphrodisiac when we feel needed by the other person. You know, like want to feel like, oh, we don't want to feel like they're needy and they need us to survive, but we want to feel like, oh, I have like, there's a reason why this person chose me. They do actually need me. Like I have value. Like I have something to add to this person's life. Because if we don't feel that, especially men, if men don't feel like I don't have anything, I don't feel like I add anything to this person's life, those are the men who actually won't be turned on. Those are the men who are going to be like, well, she or he, they have everything they need. There's nothing that I can add. So then why would I even stick around for that?
Yeah. My mom says still, that women need love and men need respect. And it's similar to what you're saying, because you're saying that men need to be, kind of, am I of use to you? Like, am I needed here? Like, am I, and that's part of what respect is. Like, you go like, thank you. I do need you here. Like and you have my respect for that, which I just think it's so funny when you hear sayings like that and you go, oh, that kind of sounds like a big generality, but you're saying that that's quite true.
Yeah. Well, I think that men, when they are appreciated, feel that they're respected. And I think that women, when they feel really loved and cherished, that's when they feel respected. And so I think that both men and women need love equally, but sometimes men aren't as in touch with their need for love as much as women. But I do think that women definitely crave more, overall in general, crave more connection. Like as a lot of women or feminine, or the feminine, like she's always looking for more connection, whether that's with friends, whether that's with a child, whether that's with their lover. Like it's almost, it can sometimes be an insatiable desire for women. Then that, and then for men, it's like, yeah, they want that connection, but they also want the masculine want also to feel like that freedom. And so part of balancing something inside ourselves when it comes to a relationship is like for a woman to always want connection, but to also know how to connect with herself and feel like she's enough on her own. And then I help a lot of men maintain their sense of freedom while at the same time connecting with that part of themselves that they really need to connect and need love. So it's always about finding the balance inside, for sure.
And how can I, as a big silly man who needs connection, but I don't think like you mentioned, I don't think I know how much I need it. How can we as men connect better? Is there a way of practical ways of which we can acknowledge that need within ourselves?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think that it is slowing down, and as cheesy as it sounds, it's really about connecting to your breath, right? I think that meditation is a wonderful tool. Just feeling more connected. You see, when a man can learn that he can dip in and out of feeling very, having his independence and his freedom, and then dip back into feeling like the love and the nurturing and the connection, it's a really wonderful thing. And so much of that is him just being able to surrender to that, right? Instead of like pushing it away, instead of suppressing it. When there's a moment where there's an opportunity for connection, like if he's in a relationship, like for you with your wife, it's like being able to notice when she's needing connection, and instead of resisting that, to actually be present for that and to enjoy it, like to be in that moment and see if you can actually enjoy it. And almost always the men who I've worked with report back saying, yeah, that's like, it's amazing when I just stop resisting. And I'm just sort of in the moment with my loved one, that it just feels so good. Yeah.
I can relate to that because, well, at least from my point of view, I can be in, essentially one of two zones, and that is like work and getting things done, productivity, and then like stop, be present, put the phone down, huge part of just becoming present, put the phone down and get in there, especially with kids. I mean, he's My son's really taught me that in a big way, is like, get the off your phone, bro, and get with your kid. Because right now he's sitting next to you or he's doing something and you're doing this. You're on your phone scrolling, and it's like, get off it. And you'll just find that, or at least what I do is I go 10 minutes. I know what you want to do. You want to tick things off the list of what you've got to do today, but just give 10 minutes right now of undivided attention on your lover, yes, on your child, on anything. And that's what I found really helpful to me. I've gone, I don't have to do this right now. I swear I can do it in an hour or in 10 minutes, and it'll be completely fine to wait until that moment to do it. That's what I found helpful.
Yeah, that's amazing. The phone is, I think we're going to look back on our lives and feel a lot of regret for having spent as much time on our phones when we could have been in the moment connecting with the people who are most important to us. And it is so important, because whether you're in a work situation, whether you're with your spouse, whether you're with your child, whether you're with your friend, just when any situation where you are around another human being, to actually be in that moment with them is a gift that you give to them, and it's a gift that you give to yourself. And even Simon Sinek talks about this a lot. Even if you're holding your phone and not looking at it, just the fact that you're holding it, it's like the person who you're sitting with is just aware of that. And you're aware of that. You're holding the phone, and there's a part of you, even if it's so slight, that is tied to that phone and not actually present with the person that you're sitting with. So that phone has to completely go away. It's so important. And
I've heard him talk about that too, about like, if you're nobody should have their phone on the table at dinner. Don't even have it on the table. No. Don't even have it up and it's closed, even face down. Get it the F off the table.
Completely off the table. I mean, unless you're like, out for dinner and you, the babysitter's with the kid and you have to have it for some sort of emergency, it really should never be on the table at all. And so,
but the other thing, it says, I've got options. It kind of like, that's what it says. It's like, I don't have to be here with you. Like, I've got options.
It says, I don't know how to be here with you. And you're not that important. Actually, what's on this device is more important than you.
Yes. But you're right. What you just said is better than what I said. I don't know how to be here with you. I actually don't know how to connect anymore. I don't know how to be present anymore. And that's what I fear. I fear exactly what you just talked about, is looking back on my life and going, gosh, there was, in the last 20 years, there's been a lot of phone, hasn't there? And not a lot of connection. And what are we doing on our phones that's so precious, that's more precious than connecting? There's nothing. I swear to God, what we're doing on our phone all the time isn't as important as presence. It isn't as important as connection, but it's also not really important at all. Like, it's nonsense what we're doing on there most of the time.
Most of the time. Exactly. I mean, the amount of time that we spend actually doing something for our career versus the things that actually don't matter. I mean, if we're honest with ourselves, there's a whole lot of spending time, like you said, on things that we don't actually need to be doing.
Yes. I'm going to quote you now. And I want to talk about something you wrote. You wrote, "To walk away from someone you care about who cannot meet your needs is one of the bravest acts you can do." End of quote. My question is, how can we know when it's time to walk away?
It's funny. I get this question a lot. So there's a few ways. And I do think that it's dependent on the relationship. So in other words, if this is a marriage or something comparable to that, right? If there's kids, if you've devoted a lot of your time and energy to this relationship, there's a whole lot invested, right? And let's just completely table abuse. Let's not even go there. This is not about that.
Right. Yeah.
I recommend people who are in that position of being married or been in a long-term partnership and they've invested a lot, that you don't actually end the relationship until you take responsibility. And you have to, I really think, be guided in that responsibility. So it's really understanding like, okay, maybe they're not meeting my needs, but how well have I been meeting their needs? Do I even know what their needs are? Like, do I actually know what makes them feel safe? Do I actually know what makes them feel loved? Do I actually know what makes them feel significant and important? Like, do I actually know these things? Because one of the things that actually was shocking for me when I started doing relationship coaching, and particularly when I would work with couples, is when I would ask someone like, so what are their needs? Like, they didn't know how to answer that. And so I don't think you can leave a relationship that's been a very important and significant relationship to you without you being able to answer that question. Like, you need to be able to answer that question, because it can't just be about you not meeting your needs, not being met. Like, you have to also meet their needs. So I think that you have to have the scary conversations. I think whatever elephant is in the room, you got to stare it down and get rid of the elephant in the room. You have to start getting really honest with each other, because people lie to each other all the time, mostly because they're lying to themselves all the time. And so I really recommend that before you throw in the towel on a relationship that's really important, where, especially, like I said, if there's kids involved, even if there's no kids involved, like, you got to get really honest with each other. Like, you have to start avoiding all the stuff that you've been avoiding and get it all out. If it's something that, and then you might say, even after that, you might say, okay, well, this isn't changing. I actually do know what their needs are. I am putting in the work. This isn't, it's just not changing. Then you have to follow that instinct to leave. And it's scary, because we will stay really long in something that's not working, because to face what's on the other side of that is the unknown. And that's really scary. And some people, that unknown is really intense. That could be a financial unknown. That could be all that, that's like, it's really big. And sometimes, even if if it's not a long-term relationship, but it's a relationship that you've really wanted it to turn into something. And, you had all these dreams, like we all tend to have in the beginning, of what this relationship is going to turn into, and the role it's going to play in our lives, and the voids that it's going to fill inside of us. We will always do that. We will always unconsciously. We all have voids. We all have parts of ourselves that feel not whole, and we will always look to someone to fill those holes until we realize, oh, they can't actually do that. So to leave, to walk away, is really brave, because we'll be hit with, well, what if I don't find anything better? Well, what if this is what if this is the best that I can do? What if leaving this means I have to be single for the next 2 years? What if it means like I won't have this kind of connection again, or I won't have this sex again? So it's really brave, but it's time to leave when you've really put in the work and the person is just not on the same page as you. It's time to leave when all you're getting is crumbs. It's time to leave when you're not on the same page. It's time to leave when you're, as much as your connection, as strong as your connection was in the beginning, it's very clear that you want to live very different types of lives.
Yeah, I got a question from a follower about this. I noticed this term breadcrumbs. Is that your term, or has this been around?
No, I definitely did not make that up.
Okay. Somebody asks, how do I let it be known in my relationship that I'm only getting breadcrumbs and I need more commitment?
You ask for what it is that you want. And you just say, this is what I'm observing. I really want this to be something more than what it is currently. And I need more of a commitment. And this is the kind of relationship that I want and I'm committed to creating with someone. And I'm not getting that feedback from you that that's what you want to. So can we have a talk about it? Because this is what I need.
Yeah, that's powerful. Particularly, I have a relationship that I want, and it's not here. Like, it's, that's really powerful. I don't often hear that.
Yeah, I said that once to someone, and I said, I know the kind of relationship that I want, and this isn't it. And that was the moment for me at that time where I was like, oh, this is actually easier than I thought to walk away from, because this is not what I want. But so many people, especially younger women, are afraid to declare that because they will just hang on because they don't want to lose that person. But that's why it takes a lot of bravery and a lot of courage. But you have to. I mean, the alternative is worse. Like, to be in something where you feel like you're being breadcrumbed, to be in something where someone is not committing to you, like, that sucks. I don't know how. I mean, please love your life single more than that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that it's a beautiful definition of bravery is to boldly face the unknown. And that's what leading a relationship does. And people are like, oh, what if I'm single for 2 years? As if that's the worst thing that's ever happened. It's
exactly.
But also it is, but if it's unknown to you, there's that story of Camelot, or it's the story of the round table of knights or something. And they've got to go into the forest, and they all go in different directions, and how they choose where they go into the forest is based on which part of the forest is darkest to them. And that's what bravery is. It's like, where is it scariest to you? Where is most horrifying? Single for 2 years? Do it.
Go for it.
That scares you?
Do it.
Like, it's probably good that you figure out how to be alone if you're so afraid of being alone that you'd rather be with somebody who doesn't meet your needs in order to avoid that.
Yes. Well said. Exactly.
I want to talk to you about, you deal with a lot of couples, and are there any communication traits that you particularly see that are a sign that a relationship is not doing well?
Yeah. Dismissiveness. So sometimes that looks like an eye roll. Sometimes that looks like, a gesture like, you don't know what you're talking about kind of thing. Dismissiveness. That's when I see that. And I transitioned my work more to work with individuals than with couples, but I've worked with a fair amount of couples, and I work with individuals on their relationships. But yeah, that is a very clear sign that that relationship is very much on the rocks, is the dismissiveness. Because if you're not listening to your partner, if you don't think what they have to say is valid, if you're so on the defense that you're not even honoring their perspective or their feelings about something, that's when things get really rough. So that dismissiveness would be the first and most important thing that comes to mind in terms of a communication pattern where people are on the rocks.
Yeah, it's also like an eye roll is contempt. It's almost like disgust. Oh, yeah. It's like,
that's part of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's part of the contempt and the resentment and disgust. And it's a big FU, basically, the eye rolling. And for some people, it's just it's a habit. Like they just do that all the time, and they really need to they need to snap out of that pattern, because it's a terrible relationship skill. It's a terrible people skill.
It's like people who, when you answer them something, when you are discussing or arguing with them, who the minute you start to answer their question, they shake their head. They're like, and it's like, well, you can't, that is so irritating. You can't possibly be listening to what I'm saying. You've already made up your mind about what I'm saying.
Yeah,
right.
So
but I could just go into, I could shift my sentence completely and go in the opposite direction of what I'm saying, and you'd still be left shaking your head. You're not listening.
Yes.
You're not taking in what I'm saying.
Yes.
And that can be a terrible communication habit. I mean, of course, we notice it in fights. Like, what's our go-to of like when we're really pissed off and when we're really upset? What do we do at those moments? Like, I run, and my wife can she can kind of spit. She's like, "Gah!" And like it's like, oh, and I'm just like,
you mean when she's angry?
Yeah, when she's angry, like it'll just be a little like a spiteful boom, which it's fiery.
Yeah,
it's good.
Yeah,
I run, but just being aware of what those instincts are, and because the eye roll would become an instinct, it'd become a habit. It'd be a thing that you do all the time.
Oh yeah. So you're saying that like you literally run away when there's conflict, and she wants to go right for it? It's not when there's
conflict. I can handle conflict. I can't handle fighting. If I feel like because what I feel about fights, I think fights are good, but when they're just purely for punching's sake, and I can tell that it's like it was your fault. It was your fault. No, it was your fault. It was your fault. I'm like, this is going to go nowhere. I'm going to leave. And what I've heard and what I've understood, because I've talked to a few people about it, is stop and communicate that you're going to leave, because nothing good can come of this right now. I'm going to go away for half an hour. And when I come back, I'll be better suited to be able to talk about this with you in a calm manner. Because what I would do is not communicate it at all.
Yeah. And then what you trigger in her is an abandonment wound, even if she doesn't even realize it, because taking a break is really good. The promise of return is what's really important. And taking a break is really important because when we're in the midst of that, we are in our lower reptilian mind. We are in fight or flight. And so we can't actually have a rational conversation in that moment. It's actually impossible. And those are the moments where people say the things to each other that they later regret. And that's when it's like, we're no longer in those moments. Two people are no longer fighting. It's not you and your wife that are fighting. It's the monster that she's projecting onto you. It's the monster that you're projecting onto her. Your emotional wounds are fighting. Your story about her is fighting. Her story about you and their worst moment is fighting. It's no longer Luke and his wife actually fighting. It's like you're both possessed. So taking that break is actually wonderful. But like you said, being able to say, I'm like, and men get flooded. This is John Gottman's work. Men actually get much more flooded emotionally. Their blood pressure goes up much faster and higher than a woman's when he's under that kind of stress. Mm-hmm. So to be able to say, like, I don't want to say things that I'm going to regret, and even and say, just like you said, like even if there's a code word that you guys can come up with, like where it's like someone says that and it's like, okay, time out. You each go to your corners and you give the promise of return. And that, if you can do that, that's actually going to raise your self-esteem so much inside of the relationship, because those are moments where you're actually taking on some leadership in the relationship. You're like, I am taking control and doing what's best for us in this moment by me stepping away. And I'm going to reassure and say that I'm going to return, because we all are afraid of abandonment, and we all are fearful of abandonment. So anytime we see a partner, we experience our lover or partner saying, I'm leaving, it's impossible to not, and this isn't cognitive, it's something that we feel in our bodies. It's impossible to not experience those words as, I'm being left. That's it. I'm being discarded.
I love what you just said about, it's so, to get to feel self-esteem about your own leadership of a relationship, or even just your own behavior, where you get to go, I'm doing the right thing by us. I'm doing the right thing by me. And there is a self-esteem that comes with that we don't ever really hear about, like doing the right thing, doing the best thing for you, that can really raise your self-worth, your self-feeling, how you feel about yourself. That means a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Because so many people think, well, there's something, I have to be single to raise my self-esteem, or like I have to leave this relationship because my self-esteem is not, where it should be. No, you learn how to raise your self-esteem inside of the relationship by doing things differently than you have before, so that you earn esteem for yourself by actually stepping out of your monkey mind, your reptilian mind, your teenage self, your 3-year-old self, and stepping into a part of you that's your higher mind or your adult self. In those moments are the moments that you actually start to feel better about yourself.
Yeah. I don't think we talk about that. It almost made me think that, how people say, oh, people don't change. It's actually like changing and shifting your behavior and trying something different that you never tried, despite all the habits that you've built up since you were 3 onwards. Maybe that's what you need, is to you do something different. Don't expect something different to come to you. I've got a question right here. How do I break the habit of dating toxic men? Maybe there's something within you that you can try differently. That's not like, how come they keep showing up?
Yeah. No, I know people say all the time, like, they'll say like, all men cheat or all men are toxic. Like, no, you keep choosing them. And I think this question's a good question, because this person is saying, did they say, how do I stop choosing, or how do I stop attracting?
How do I break the habit of dating toxic men?
Okay. Well, that's good. Well, first, it's knowing that you're not attracting them into your life. You're actually choosing them. Because we're going to attract all sorts of people into our lives. And we are going to attract, there's going to be toxic people and not so toxic people. It's who you decide to surround yourself with, who you decide to share your energy with. So toxic is such an overused word. So I don't know what this person means by toxic, but I guess, on someone who's definitely not treated them right or doesn't treat themselves right. I'm just going to go with that, Yeah. So how do you break the habit of dating toxic men? Well, you first start by examining why you are attracted to those men. Why do toxic men turn you on? And that's really where you're going to go. If it's a woman asking this question, she's going to have to look at daddy issues. She might have to look at mommy issues. She, aside from childhood, maybe maybe some of these quote unquote toxic men present themselves in the beginning as archetypically having what many women want. Like maybe he has a good career. Maybe he's good looking. Maybe he's physically strong. Maybe he comes across as someone who would be able to protect her. Maybe he has a big friend circle. Maybe he's got a big life, whatever it is. Maybe he looks like the kind of, maybe he looks exactly like the man that she would envision herself with when she was, 8 years old, sometimes we, as kids, we'll see a picture of, someone, whether it's a man or a woman or whatever we're attracted to, and it'll
Vanilla
leave
ice.
this imprint. Yeah. And then like we meet someone, it's like, there he is, and we don't pay attention to the fact that like, oh, you actually have to feel safe around this person. You actually have to feel important around this person. You actually have to know that like they respect you. Like there's so many other things you have to look for. So first figure out why you're attracted to them. Go back in time, figure out your childhood stuff, figure out whatever attachment you have to what archetypically you have. And I say this, for women in particular, don't sleep with men until you know that they are worth their salt. And what I mean by that is until you know that you can safely express an opinion with them, that you can actually open up your heart to them, and they're going to be like, I want to know more. I want to know, tell me more. I want to know, I want more of your heart, until you actually feel safe in their presence and know that actually they want to be with you and only you. Then let them have access to your energy that way. Like it has to be more sacred. And the problem is that we've been so conditioned as women to believe that like, that if we can hook a man sexually, that he's actually going to be ours. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, Luke, but that's not actually true. That's not actually true. Like what's going to get a man to want to love us and commit to us goes well beyond sex, because you can have sex with anyone. And there's tons of hot people to have sex with.
Right. Well,
right?
Men figure out how they feel about a woman once they have come. The sobriety that comes with ejaculation, comes after ejaculation, and they go, oh, this is how I really feel about you.
Yes.
It's there. It's so horrifying.
It's there.
It's like a bus. It hits you and you're like,
yeah,
you're not supposed to be there. It's a dreadful feeling.
Yes. And I tell women that I'm going to actually say this to them. I'm going to say, Luke Cook says, he knows once he's come, like, okay, like I'm not trying to get you anymore. The conquest is over and I still freaking want you. I want to spend more time with you. So figure out why you're attracted to them. Rewire some of that, recondition some of those beliefs that you have about love and romance, and go slow. Don't give your energy away so quickly. Yeah.
I'm going to ask you one last question before we wrap up. It's one that I wrote this morning. Jillian, if you had to leave the earth today and you could only leave us with 3 lessons, what would they be?
Is this your question or did someone actually ask this?
No, I'm asking you. It's my question. I thought of it this morning.
Okay. So if I were to leave the earth today, what are the 3 lessons I would leave? Can you say it again?
You want to leave behind. Yeah, that you want to leave behind.
Okay. Number 1, in no particular order. Number 1, nothing is as big of a deal as you think it is in the moment. Or very rarely. Number 2, and this isn't, other people have said this, but I really, really believe this. it's very rare that you're going to regret the things that you did. You're going to regret the things that you didn't do. And in that, you're going to regret the people that you didn't connect with and the community that you didn't build. And number 3, pay attention to the people who actually love you and stop trying to chase love from people who don't care.
Yeah. Chase the people who are whole loaves rather than the breadcrumbs.
Exactly.
Preferably a sourdough.
That whole pie.
Oh yeah,
Me
delish.
Yeah, delicious. Yum.
I wish I could give you a very un-COVID safe hug. Because it's just so nice to chat and actually, you know, I had all these questions and I didn't even I think I had to look over twice to find a question, like particularly because I was reading from followers' questions, but just, it was just such an ease talking to you. You're really a delight. You're full of information. How can we follow you and keep in contact with you?
Yeah, so the best way is on Instagram. So it's my name at Jillian Turecki. I actually have a TikTok account, which
Good.
cracks me up.
I'll follow you.
Yes, which is at Jillian.Turecki, I believe. And my website, JillianTurecki.com. So all just like full name. You can find me. TikTok,
you have a
Instagram.
book?
I'm working on a book. I created a workbook called the Heartbreak Workbook that I've sold thousands and thousands of copies. I had no idea. I had some idea, but I created this workbook to chronicle the exact steps that I took to get over my divorce many years ago. That was just very, very devastating. That became the catalyst for the work that I do now.
Yeah.
And so I have that workbook, and I'm actually working on an actual book now. And
right.
Oh my God, my podcast, I have a podcast coming out.
That's right. I saw this news yesterday that it's going to be picked up by some. Please tell us about that.
Qcode Media picked it up. It's actually launching, I believe, September 7th. But dates, I'll be releasing all that information soon. So yeah, I have a podcast coming out. So Jillian On Love.
I love that. Well, if you ever want to have me on, I'm not forcing you, but if you ever want to have me on to talk about post-ejaculation sobriety, I would be more than happy.
I would love, can we absolutely talk about that? Like 100%. We'll just talk about, we have to talk about it because a lot of listeners will want to know from a man himself, what's up?
Yeah, I know that feeling. I know that feeling too well. That's why I was always so happy to get married and go, oh, I love not feeling that ever again.
Yes. How long have you been married?
We've been married since 2020. We got married mid-lockdown in Sydney, which was great because it's so cheap. Great cheap wedding.
Yeah.
And it was very quick.
Well?
Australian as well. We met in May 2019. We grew up on the same street, but we met in Los Angeles. And then, so it's kind of like magical. But it was immediate. May 2019, engaged by Christmas 2019, knocked her up by March of 2020.
Wow, wasted no time.
Waste no time. So you just, you know.
That's
so
wonderful.
just get into it,
Just do it.
Exactly. Exactly. That's the name of your new book. Just do it.
Just do it.
Jillian Turecki, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Pleasure for me as well.